Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another football transfer forum. It's July already. We're into the second half of the year. But Tony, what a time to be alive. I've got to start it off. I was so lucky to be at the England-Germany game on Tuesday. What a fabulous game. What a great tournament it's been so far. Tony Sharkey, good morning.
Morning, Ryan. Yeah, I'm a bit hoarse, as you can tell, just shouting at the telly more than anything. I know you got the VIP treatment down at Wembley, but I was just having to watch it at home. Really enjoyed it. We've kept, is that 4 clean sheets now? Jordan Pickford's been outstanding. Some of the attacking creative players have been outstanding, defenders. But having said that, you know, we had 2 big chances and put ours away. The Germans had 2 big chances and didn't score. So it could have gone horribly wrong had Thomas Muller put that one away at 1-0.
Absolutely. So obviously we're also, Tony, now into the transfer window as well here domestically. It's going to be a bit of a theme of this morning's football transfer forum. Just a few words before we get going. Excited about this window. Interesting window coming out of COVID into a season, hopefully with fans in the ground. How are you feeling?
Yeah, we had Martin Glover, who's head of scouting and recruitment at Southampton, on in the June edition of the Football Transfer Forum, and he was quite reserved about how the Premier League were looking at the transfer window. I think the big clubs, they've already started to flex the muscles, and there's some big deals in the offing already. There's some deals done already in the Premier League. I think what today's more about is looking at the Championship. And I just see we've got Glyn Chamberlain just logging on there from Blackburn Rovers, which is great. And also League One and League Two. And we've got Marc Tracy, Chief Scout of Lincoln City, on as well a little bit later. And I mean, the other big thing that came in the January window and really has affected things massively is the Brexit rules and the new GBE rules that means that not all EU players can come in anymore. And it's great to have the guys from Catenaccio AI here, Max and Arthur with us as well, because that's a really, really useful tool that they're going to tell us a little bit more about in a second. But I think, you know, for me, it's going to be a tricky window. I don't think there's going to be massive amounts of money spent as there has been in the past. I'm also going to look at agent fees later on, Ryan.
Yeah. Well, you've stolen my thunder a little bit, Tony, because I was about to go through the schedule, which you've done. Can I share my screen, please, Tony?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, I just got a bit carried away. You know, I just was so pleased to see all our lovely guests. I just thought I'd try me role at a presenter.
So we'll just quickly go through it. As Tony said, we're going to speak to the guys from Catenaccio AI first. Then we'll be introducing Glyn, head scouting at Blackburn Rovers. Then we'll be speaking to Marc, chief scout at Lincoln City. And then Tony has alluded to the new data out in terms of where agents' fees are at. We'll touch on before we have a bit of a discussion towards the end as well. As always, guys, if you've got a question, please do put it in the Q&A box. Try not to put it in the chat box, just makes my life much easier. If you've got some general things or some general ideas about what's going on, please put it in the chat box. Likewise, if you want to share your LinkedIn address, feel free to do that in the chat box as well. Okay, excellent. Let's move on and let's introduce Max and Arthur from Catenaccio AI into the chat. Morning, guys. Can you hear me?
Morning.
Yes.
Excellent. First of all, fantastic for you guys to be with us. It's me and Tony have been waxing lyrical about the work that you guys have been doing. We are literally boys with new toys with this system that you have got. We've spoke lots on this transfer forum and in the other webinars that we've done with the European Football Agents Association about GBE status for international players coming in. And you guys have developed what is a really important tool for anybody operating in this area. So I know you've got some slides to share to tell us all about yourselves. So I'm going to hand it over to you initially, and then I'll dive in with some questions. So over to you guys.
Okay, thank you. So hello everyone, my name is Marc, and I'm CEO of Catenaccio AI. And today we will present you together with my partner, our sales manager, Artur.
Hi everyone.
He will help me translate a little bit because we come from Latvia, so please forgive me less than perfect accents.
Max, your English is fine. It's great. You know,
I told him this one. He doesn't need to be nervous. So.
You're a lot better than any. I only speak one language, so you're ahead of me straight away.
And today we will present you a really exciting product that we're working on for quite some time, yeah? And so Artur, let's start.
So yeah, the GB points regulation released in December 2020 dramatically changed scouting in English football. According to a study, out of 103 players that came to English Premier League and Championship in the past 3 years, transfer windows, around 60% came from Band 4. Just give me a second, please. Yes, so they came from Band 4 or below, which means they had a high probability to be eligible under current GB rules.
Wow. Yeah. So Arthur, 60% of players that had come in previously would not have been eligible.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah.
And they came from Band 4. If you will check the slide, so. Yeah. It's a second Bundesliga, for example, Austrian Bundesliga. So yeah, and so just give me a second. Now you might say that all these rules are fundamentally easy, but it's not so easy. So you can't calculate itself if you're using free tools like Transfer Market, and the answer to that is. The percentage for domestic and continental
progressional.
Yeah, sorry.
Continental.
Yes, continental minutes should be calculated, including the stoppage time, which is very important. The points for the final league position and continental progression for a player apply even if you hadn't had a single appearance for the team, but you were in the match day squad list for at least once in the domestic league. If you played for more than one club in the reference period, which is 12 months in this case, the domestic are calculated according to weighted formula. So do you have any questions about this slide?
Yeah. So I think what you're saying there is that there are other products out there that are trying to calculate the GBE score, but there are these little details, like you say, in terms of the extra time minutes, the injury time minutes, that your system is taking into account.
Even if you didn't play and you just was in a squad, which is as well important. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Really interesting.
And Max, you've already got some English clubs on board as well, using the GBE regularly.
Yes, of course. Tell us
a little bit about who those are.
Yeah, for this moment, Artur can show you also. We have a slide with our customer. So in this moment, we already signed contract with Swansea, with Birmingham, with Nottingham Forest, and Coventry City. And our customer from last week, we already signed the Millwall Football Club.
Great. So these guys are using it. These 5 football teams.
These 5 football clubs using it, trust me, every day. every day, and they try to check a lot of players. So because I think for championship club it's most important because they don't have a big budget for the transfer, you know, because with the Premier League, its club is separate. They have a money and most clear because they take the players and you know in 99% this player will available for GB rules.
Yeah, and you've got an agency on there as well as the absolute best customer of all, the Football Transfer Forum, of course.
But you know, with agency we work with a little bit difficult because we have a lot of conference, a lot of conversation with the agency, but for this moment we sign just with the unique.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because in my opinion, for agency our price is little bit expensive. You know, it's just for big agency who have a budget, who have a lot of players, who need check players every day. So
yeah. So if the, I mean, we do have some of the football transfer community in some of the big agencies like Stella and Base and Wasserman. So if you're out there listening, you know, these are the guys to go to. I'm using it regularly. Actually, I've started to get people asking me to do the checks for them. So that's a bit painful, but I'm doing a few checks every single day on players across Europe and the rest of the world as well.
And Max, so I want to ask, if somebody's got the system, how do they go about checking the player? How easy is it? What do? Do you just type their name in?
Oh, it's this is very easy.
Simple interface.
Yes.
I just put the slide on.
Yeah, simple interface. You go to the search. You try to put the name. For 99%, for sure you will find this player. But sometimes don't have in our system. Yeah. In other way, you can go in a Transfermarkt web pages.
Yeah.
Make a copy the player who interesting for you and put this link in our search and the system will calculate all numbers and it will give you the result in 30 seconds. It's very easy, very easy.
And one of the features that we just rolled out is the support for injuries, which you can pass to the API and have calculating taking injuries on account, which I think is very important as well.
Yeah, it's a new feature. Yeah. It's a new feature for I think it's most important for football clubs. Yeah, for professional football clubs, for championship.
So Max, when I've used this, it is really straightforward. I found it dead user friendly. If it doesn't have the player, you can put a Transfermarkt link in as well. It'll find the player for you. And then right at the end, it comes up as either in this one eligible, if it's over 15 points eligible, if it's under 10 points ineligible, so they're not allowed to come in the country. But then also there's the 10 to 14 points, which is you can go to the exceptions panel. Sorry,
yeah.
So that you know that if he doesn't quite make it automatically, you can actually go to the exceptions panel, and that's only available in England for this summer, I think, according to FA.
And Tony, the other thing that I've really liked about it is that it gives the breakdown of where the points have been collated as well. And that actually, because sometimes, guys, and I don't know what you think about this, sometimes a player might be not eligible, but actually he's really close. And you can see that maybe one more international appearance, or actually if he ends up playing in a Europa League game next season, then he's going to be eligible, so he can stay on your radar.
Ryan, I was going to ask that very question, Max, Arthur. You know, we've got the Euros on at the moment. Is this thing changing as each game goes by? You know, as some player comes on the pitch in the Euros, is this being updated?
Of course. We update after every game. After every game, we make online updates because now it's important time. You know, it's a transfer window is open. Every clubs try to find some players who will available with the GB points, and after group stage, we already update the system. And after every stage, after every game, we also update the system, update the numbers. So, of course, it's very important. You know, Tony, what I want to say for us, the for us, for Catenaccio A, we are a small company. Yeah, we are new company, a very small company from East Europe. And for us, this is the first product and just one product. So it's a 100% business. That's why it's very important for us to be very correct on the market. And we do everything to be correct. Because, you know, the different provider or sometimes provide this GB points calculator for free if you will buy the analytic system.
Yeah.
But this is just like option. For this big company, this is probably 5-10% of all business. For us, like I tell you before, it's 100% business.
It's everything. It's everything.
Yeah.
And Max, we spoke yesterday, and you were going to give all our attendees today a promotional code, a special code. Just tell us a little bit about that, Max.
Tony, not for 10 days. We will give you for 1 month.
Oh, for 1 month. Oh, wow. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Promotional
you so
code
much, Max.
for welcome.
So basically, everyone who's on the call, what do they need to do, Max?
You need to go to the webpage Catenaccio A and make registration.
Yes,
Arthur will
you can use the promotional code FTT. When you sign up, they will give you free checks to try the service. Otherwise, if you're interested to hear more about algorithm and any other information, you can contact us as well directly. There is some contact information on the website. As Maxim said, 1 month for free.
1 month, this promo code, for 1 month, you can check 3 players for free.
Oh, okay.
So FT Forum, they put that in the box.
Forum, yeah.
And they put that in the box and they get a month free. That's fantastic, Max. I'm really pleased with that. And I think everyone either take a screenshot or note it down. Catenaccio AI is the website to go to. Like I said, I'm using it every single day, checking players. It's a really useful tool. Glyn, I'm sure you'll be logging on straight after this to check hundreds and hundreds of players. But no, that's fantastic. That's so good of you. Thank you, Max. Thank you, Arthur.
Guys, thank you so much. As I say, Tony and I really have felt like boys with new toys on it, haven't we, Tony? It's so simple to use. It looks great. It's so quick. And it's and you know, I'm sure we're going to hear from the guys on the call today as well. It's a genuine problem that clubs have got. And Tony, I just think that stat at the start that, you know, prior to this situation here, you know, 60% of players coming in would have been ineligible. That's a big number.
I'm sort of thinking of some of the clubs that used to look at, you know, the second division, Bundesliga 2. The second division in France. They
were good hunting grounds, weren't they?
There's some really good players. You know, when you look at the Brentford business model and Danish players, I think Denmark were in quite a low band. I think they were put up slightly for the summer. But, you know, they've signed some great players from League 2 in France and some Danish players as well. And this just tells you within an instant, you know, maybe they'll tweak their business models because of this, because of the Brexit and because of the new rules coming in.
Quick question before we let you go, Max and Arthur. At the moment, does it cover female players, or is that something for the future?
No. For this moment, our focus just for men's players.
Okay.
You know, the regulation change every 6 months. Yeah.
Sure.
We spend. I will be shortly. Okay. We spent a lot of time. I think 2-3 months before and prepare the youth full support of youth regulation. It was very difficult work, but in summer everything changed and youth regulation now not available, just debut for youth player. Yeah.
Okay.
And so yeah.
Fantastic. Well, guys, thank you for coming on. Thank you for that promo code, Tony. I know we'll share that in the chat box as well. Good luck with it, guys, and thanks for being on. Brilliant to have you with us.
Thank you for your
Thank
time
you.
and
Thank
for
you, guys.
your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Let's bring in Glyn Chamberlain, head of scouting at Blackburn Rovers. Good morning, Glyn. How are you?
I'm good, Ryan. Thank you. Are you?
Yeah, Glyn, did I mention that I was at the game on Tuesday?
Just 147.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Just making sure. Just making sure. Glyn, I'm going to go really straight from the guys into you. How much of an issue has GBE been for you?
Quite big when it first came out. We had a meeting with the Premier League people fairly early doors who gave us a 30-40 page document that we're still using. I'm still using. First of all, I think we wiped 20 to 30 players off our database because simply they can't come in. Nothing to do with ability, they just can't come in. So we were using the document that the Premier League gave us, where I go to Transfer Market to look at value. We look at clips of players. We're trying to work out how many Europa League games they've played, how many youth international games they've played, and we're calculating our own points between us in the recruitment room. We're calculating how many points these players have got before we decide whether we can move on them and do reports on them or speak to agents. So to have something in place which is all in one area, it would be a fantastic help.
Yeah,
Glyn, I've just shared the kind offering from the guys in the chat.
Yeah.
Will you be having a look at it this month?
I'll probably look at it this afternoon.
I knew it.
At the moment, so we'll probably have a look at that at some point this afternoon.
Yeah,
fantastic.
But
the reality is, Glyn, isn't it? And as Tony alluded to it, it is going to change where you can and can't look for players.
Yeah. But it also changes as well. I mean, we've wrote some players off, but if they move to different clubs within Europe and play one more Europa League game or play 2 youth international games, then they come back onto your radar. So it's a never-changing situation that you're monitoring players from abroad. I mean, we were anyway, but you monitor them even probably closer now because of could make 2 appearances this weekend in an international game or could be in somebody's squad on the opening day of the season and they're back on your radar.
Absolutely. And the other thing that's going on, and I'm sure the guys are all over this as well, Tony, is that I know we've got an obsession over the European Championships happening at the moment, but the Copa America is happening at America. And where one door closes, Glyn, another door opens. And you know, a Blackburn thinking about South America now, because the reality is you might be able to recruit directly from there.
Yeah, well, we've obviously been following the games because we've actually got a player out there. Ben Berrett's been playing for Chile.
Played for Chile, hasn't he? Yeah.
So that's a great story, Glyn. How did that come about? I mean, obviously, tell us a little bit more about Ben.
Ben's I think it's the connection is I think Ben's from Stoke-on-Trent, and I think his mother was born in Chile. I think it's something along that connection.
Wow, fantastic.
Yeah,
and obviously he's been on their radar and he's done exceptionally well in this tournament so far.
Glyn, I was at Port Vale for a while, and it's nothing like Caracas, I can assure you. It's, I'm sure he'll be fitting in. But Glyn, tell us about the situation at Blackburn. A solid season last season. The club seems to be in a good, stable position at the moment. What are the ambitions for next season? What are the areas that you're looking at?
Well, we're always looking to improve in every department, obviously. Obviously, the window's open at the moment. We're still looking to add another 3 or 4 players to the squad before the opening day of the season, or preferably before the opening day of the season. But it might go to the last day of the window. That's the way it is at the moment. Finding that the market over here is slow, very slow. We'll probably begin to heat up a bit in the next 7 to 10 days because clubs are back training. Players who aren't fixed up with clubs at this moment in time, where they're speaking to 2 clubs, 3 clubs, 4 clubs, and might be looking for deals at different deals, they're starting to miss 7 to 10 days of pre-season training. And I'm a great believer that if you miss 7 to 10 days of that, you're on catch-up for the rest of the season. So the market's a little bit slow. I think the market, obviously I speak to quite a few of the boys at different championship clubs. We're all finding it's the same thing. We're all actually thinking who's going to push the first domino over to keep it get it going. But I think in the next 7 or 10 days, I think it'll start and warm up a little bit.
And Glyn, you picked up a couple of majorish injuries last season, didn't you, as well? And also you've got two sort of prized assets, if you like. I know the goalkeeper Kaminski did ever so well for you last year. Yeah. And obviously up top, Adam Armstrong, his goal tally. I mean, obviously Ivan Toney had a fantastic season. Yeah. But in the normal season, Adam Armstrong probably would have been top goal scorer in the championship.
Yeah. They both had terrific seasons, haven't they? Both had. Interesting on that, we signed Thomas last season, who would have still qualified to come in.
Great.
In place, but we took a Greek goalkeeper, Steriakis, who we wouldn't have been able to get in. Yeah. So it's swings and roundabouts on that.
And obviously, Tony alluded to it. I see you've dodged it a little bit there, Glyn, but Adam Armstrong is obviously a prized asset.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm sure you would have been doing this anyway. But how do you see the market for replacing Adam Armstrong? Is there a gluttony of options, or is it tough?
There's not a gluttony of options, because everybody in the whole 92 clubs in this country are looking for strikers.
Yeah,
it's the key position, isn't it? Really. I personally think it'll take 2 players to replace Adam.
Yeah. And again, you both domestically and overseas are the consideration.
Yeah. We've been looking everywhere. But every club's looking at the same places that we're looking at.
And Glyn, with the situation changing, do you see it as a bigger opportunity for you to recruit from the academy as well? Do you see more opportunities for the local lads as well?
Well, I think our academy's produced quite well over the past few seasons. Ryan Nyambi, Darrell Lenahan, Lewis Travis, they've all came through the academy and become mainstays of this team at the moment in time. So there's a hell of a lot of good work going in the academy at 16s, 18s and 23 level. And we have to keep that going. We have to keep improving that, as well as improving the recruitment from the outside to try and push on a bit more.
So Glyn, do you think next season in the championship we're going to see more 18, 19, 20-year-olds on the pitch than we have perhaps in the last few seasons?
I think there could be, yeah. I think there could be. I think it's a situation similar to Scotland, where younger players are getting opportunities in Scotland because there's not as much money about. And I think this year, the pandemic, which we're still in, has not really affected us. Might not affect us until the end of next season. We might be thrusting younger players into the teams because the money's not available or the money's not about for established players.
Yeah, and conversely, if you're wanting to spend some money on a big ticket, a big signing, it's so much more difficult because the market's been reduced by what's happened at Brexit. Yep. Are you, for example, monitoring the Euros?
We are, but I mean, if you look at everybody's Euro squad, they're all top class players anyway. They're probably, with all due respect, they're probably past us. We kept an eye on the under 21 championships, under 23 and under 21 championships, and 18 championships. What's been going on this year? Because there might be 1 or 2 players there from lower league clubs throughout Europe that you might be able to purchase if you've got the funds to do it.
Glyn, I wanted to ask you, there's a presentation happening in Parliament today for a group called Fair Game, which are trying to change the structures of the finances in football. And one of the big things that they talk about is the inequity within the championship, with existing championship clubs versus those that are coming down from the Premier League. I'm sure you're going for similar players, but just how hard is it to compete with those clubs for the signings of players?
Well, it's very hard because Sheffield United, West Brom, who's the other one? Come down last year.
Fulham.
Yeah, Fulham.
They're coming down with good squads of players.
Yeah,
Premier League players. They're coming down with parachute money. Over the last season, I think you saw the 3 go up who'd come down from the previous season.
Mm.
It's very difficult. It's very difficult to compete, but you've got to find a way somehow. You've got to find a way.
Yeah, and obviously Watford and Norwich went up, and Bournemouth was the only other one that didn't go up, but they're still in the league, still very, very strong, just missed out in the playoffs. Who else do you think in that sort of group are going to be up there or thereabouts that, not from the Premier League?
There could be 6, there could be 7, 8, 9 clubs challenging again. I would have thought. Neil seems to stabilise Middlesbrough. They'll probably be a threat with his experience of getting teams out of this division. What about Barnsley last season? How well did they do? Although they've lost the manager and might lose a couple of players, but fantastic season for them. Can they replicate that?
Yeah, I mean, I personally thought that was one of the managing or head coach performances of the year. What Valérien Ismaël did at Barnsley, getting them. They were almost relegated, weren't the last kick of the season sort of thing. They stayed up, and they only stayed up because of what happened with Wigan and relegation. And yet, he had a real good tilt, got into the playoffs. So didn't quite make it, to all the way to Wembley. But
we'll be looking at Swansea again, who will be strong, and Bournemouth will be strong and are quite well financially backed at Bournemouth. Maybe 8, 10 clubs chasing that top 6. And somebody will surprise you as well from lower down. Barnsley surprised last year. There'll be another team surprises this year, I would have thought.
Glyn, in a previous webinar that we'd done, Tony had looked at the amount of players from the Championship that were actually playing in the European Championships. And Tony, I think the Championship was like the 3rd or 4th biggest supplier of players into the Euros. Glyn, is that reflected when you're speaking to clubs, players and agents from, especially overseas? Do they see the Championship as a massive opportunity, and would they put it ahead of going to, say, a Ligue 1 or a Bundesliga or La Liga, or where do you get the positioning of how agents and players feel about coming to the Championship?
I definitely think that a lot of European agents and European players see this as a stepping stone to the Premier League. Obviously, with the amount of games here and the coverage that it gets and the intensity that it's played at, I mean, it is a stepping stone because clubs are coming. West Brom come up and down, Fulham come up and down, and we've all been in the Premier League. Nearly all the teams in the Championship have been in the Premier League at some point. So I think a lot of people, I wouldn't say that they prioritise it over the Bundesliga, because the Bundesliga is equally appealing to players, isn't it? But I do think that the Championship has just that little bit of an edge for people coming across to try and get into the Premier League.
I mean, Tony, what do you think of about that? Where would you put the Championship in terms of sort of priority of, if you had a choice between going to the Premier League in Portugal or the Championship, where do you think the consensus would be there?
I think it would be.
Yeah, I think it's very club dependent, isn't it, Ryan? If it's a club at the top of the Championship, and obviously it's finance as well, and we're going to talk about finances a little bit later on, because the spending power of the Championship has been greatly reduced. So last summer, probably about 10 of the Championship clubs sold players and didn't really buy any players. So there was no real transfers of any significance last summer, apart from the Ivan Toney deal, which has worked out an absolute treat for Brentford, helped them get promoted with all his goals. But the other clubs in the Championship sold assets, obviously Jude Bellingham, Bournemouth sold a few players, Norwich sold a few players and managed to get back up. Everyone sold and sort of tried to get the money into weather this financial storm that's been sort of raging due to having no crowds. So when you look at the big leagues abroad, the Championship is a strong league, but again, if you're going to attract them players, you're going to have to pay transfer fees, you're going to have to pay big wages, and I just don't see that happening this summer.
No.
I think it'll be more of the same in terms of there'll be a handful of major deals, and those will be the clubs that possibly, you know, have come down from the Premier League. I mean, I don't see. I mean, I'm not talking out of school, Glyn, but I don't see Blackburn splashing out 5 million myself.
No. I think for the majority of people in the Championship, apart from a handful of deals, I think the rest of us are all looking at frees, loans, and swaps.
Swap. Well, you say swaps. How difficult it is to do a deal? Never mind to do 2 deals. You know.
No, I know, but I think that will affect us for the next 12 months going forward as well. I don't think we'll recover from this in the next 12 months because we're 12 months behind in the first place. You know, we're playing catch up, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And is there a word on fans? I mean, I don't know where we are. I've sort of lost track of. You know, Wembley seems to be filling up, so that's a good sign.
Yeah.
Are we getting fans back on? You know, the first game in August?
Yes, Tony. Yeah.
If all restrictions are lifted on the 19th like they're supposed to be, and then I think we've got a great chance of. Do you think we'll have 40,000 in stadium straight away, or I don't know? Will it be a restricted 30, or I don't know. I'm not followed that close, to be fair, but
who knows? Do you know, Glyn? You were on.
Sorry, desperately hoping that we get them back because I went to probably just short of 90 games last season, and it was purgatory.
Yeah,
it was awful.
Yeah, absolutely. Glyn, pandemic aside, did you think it was getting harder to do deals pre-pandemic, and this has really exacerbated the issue?
Yeah, I think it were. I definitely think it was harder to do deals. There's players are speaking to more clubs over a period of time, waiting to make decisions, which is always happened, to be fair, over the years. And then a week before you start back training, players want to get up and want to get training straight away. But we always play this cat and mouse game from the end of the season to the first week of your due back training, and then they need to start making decisions.
Yeah, and you know, for as much as we were talking, Tony, about the Championship being a really strong league, the reality is that other leagues are developing now, aren't they? The MLS is definitely a competitor for players as well. We've seen a sort of, you know, China is not what it was, but certainly the A League as well has definitely taken players that could have played in. So how do you see that environment? It's very competitive, isn't it, Glyn?
Hugely competitive. It's obviously it's worldwide, isn't it? It's hugely competitive now. I still think players would prefer to get their best years in the Championship or the Premiership. And with all due respect, the A League and Chinese League are something later on in your career.
Mm. And I'm going to be delicate here, Glyn, but it's when you know the notion of going to live in Blackburn when you might have Sydney after you or Seattle Sounders after you, it's a different dynamic, isn't it?
Yeah, you turn them two down to live in Blackburn.
Well, that's what I thought. That's exactly right. That's absolutely exactly right. Well, Glyn, thank you for being with us this morning. It's going to be really interesting to see who Blackburn keep hold of, Tony, and then who they manage to recruit as well. So good luck, Glyn, and we'll be keeping abreast of how you're getting on.
Thanks very much. Speak to you shortly.
Cheers, Glyn.
Cheers, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Fantastic. So we're going to move from the Championship to League One, and we're going to introduce Marc Tracy, Chief Scout at Lincoln. How are you, Marc?
I'm very well, Ryan. Yourself?
Yeah, really good, thanks. Really appreciate you being with us. I want to start off by, Lincoln have really progressed as a football club in recent history. They're so well regarded off the field in terms of how the club is run, the structures that are in place. Do you get a real sense of the appreciation that the club is receiving externally?
Yeah, I think so. I think the people behind the scenes, the chairman, Clive Nates, chief exec Liam Scully, director of football, Jez George, together with the supporting board members, have really worked extremely hard to build on making a progressive, expansive and exciting football club, and not just on the football pitch, but off it as well. So you've probably seen, and it already started from Danny and Nicky Cowley, with the success they had from their rise from the National League into the league, and in particular the unbelievable FA Cup run that the club had during that time. And the club very wisely decided to use that money to build internal infrastructures, new training ground, and things like that. So money hasn't been spent on players in terms of transfer fees, but actually the club itself is developing all the time. And we're quite proud of the fact that we can actually show what we now have. And it does also play a part in the recruitment when we're trying to attract new talented players to the club to help us progress and go the best we can higher up the leagues if we can do that.
And Marc, tell us a little bit about yourself, because you know it's great to have you on the. Am I taking your job again, Ryan?
Yeah, I tell you, you know, Declan Rice and Calvin Phillips, they kept their distance on Tuesday. You're getting a bit close to me.
Oh, do you want to ask the question then?
No, it's too late. Marc, apologise for us. Okay, crack on. Tell us about yourself.
So what do you want me to say?
Yeah, just a bit about your background. Yeah.
Wow, where do I start? So I've always been lucky enough to be involved in football from the moment I left school. Naturally, I think most people take this progression in terms of working voluntary in the football and the community departments, coaching young children around schools and things like that. Now, I did have a little bit of a unique situation in the fact that when I was 15, I'd only just joined the local area where I live, and I somehow got involved with the first team at Peterborough United. And what I mean, not in a playing capacity, because I was only 15 and I wasn't good enough, by the way. I was doing all the jobs, because this was 1991. So there was no kit men. There was a manager, assistant manager, and a physio. That was it. There was no goalie coaches. There was nothing of what we see today. So I, being a football mental crazy nut, volunteered my time to get the balls out the trees and out stinging nettles and go and run and get a bottle of water for the lads, because there was nothing like that like it's today. And I was rewarded by having a free ticket to watch Peterborough United play, which I was absolutely over the moon with. The players got to know me naturally, because I was hanging around them all every day on my bike, riding around the city, wherever, because there was no training grounds in those days either. It was school to school. Where could you train from day to day or week to week? Cut a long story short, I got the manager, who sadly now passed away, Chris Turner. He invited me to travel with the team to a particular away game, and I'd done that. It was Birmingham City back in September 91. And I'd done everything that day. I warmed up the goalkeeper on the pitch. I was in the changing rooms. I had pre-match. I was done everything, and it was at the time the best day of my life.
Yeah.
And on the way home, he said that as long as he's the manager, I could stay with the squad. And I'd done that for home and away for 5 seasons. Wow. Naturally, as a 15, 16-year-old boy in a city that's also trying to learn to be a coach, I became quite popular, because maybe a bit of jealousy from all my mates and all the rest of it. And I was around the school, so I had that close connection with the kids and the team. So my rise through football continued quite quickly then. And then I stayed at that club until 2003, working my way up to being assistant academy, or it would have been then Centre of Excellence manager. And then the club disbanded their youth policy. And then I was lucky enough during my time to build up some good relationships and contacts during that time. And then I got a call from Cambridge originally to go there as a part-time coach. And I worked for an organisation called Premier Soccer, which is now called Premier Sport, which is one of the biggest sporting manufacturers in the country for dealing with kids in schools. It was run by David Batch. And then I was always itching to get back into full-time football, because that's what I'd experienced for the previous years. And then I luckily got a call from a really good friend, Jeff Howard, at Rushden and Diamonds at the time. And I went there as academy recruitment officer. but their club at the time was on a bit of a demise, and Jeff got promoted to be assistant manager within 6 weeks of me being there, which meant I had to stop doing my role and become the youth team manager. So I was there for a year. Lucky enough, I had people like Simeon Jackson and Lee Tomlin up front for me. And then the club actually got relegated from the league, and I then was a bit jobless then again. So I then went to Colchester, I went on to Southend, I went back to Cambridge, I've had stints at Luton, and now went back to Cambridge again, and then Lincoln recruited me 3 years ago. So I've had a number of different roles and responsibilities, but I've also built up some really good friends along the way and got to see a lot of football games naturally. And yeah, you've seen players that you might have recruited at 8 and 9 now playing professionally, or maybe even retired. But yeah, it's been an unbelievable journey. So I'm very privileged, to be fair.
And Marc, going back to, Ryan's not happy again, look, going back to getting out the National League, that's a really tough league to get out of. You know, how did that work?
That is really hard. When I was at Rushden and Cambridge, both in the National League, I actually left Southend United, funny enough, full-time member, to go to Cambridge, who were actually on the verge of getting relegated out of the National League. There was like a couple of games to go, and I remember we beat Hazen Yedding at home on Bank Holiday Monday 1-0 with 10 men, and that kind of saved us from going down. But it was so tough, because you're trying to recruit players that don't really want to fall out the league system. You're trying to promote your own youth players that really have no protection for compensation. So what you have to do is try and rely and build really good relationships and friendships and have good people around you. And that's really key in any industry anyway, having good people around you. And yeah, we found a way, we found a unique way. And I get a bit of stick because I was at Cambridge and I was doing more of the youth at the time, and I left Cambridge to go to Luton, who were fighting Cambridge for the title.
Yeah.
And I am a Luton fan. That's where I was born and bred. So it pulled on the heartstrings a little bit to go and join that club, and I joined it. And that year, actually, both teams went up, which was fantastic. And then Cambridge were asking me to come back, and it was going to change my role slightly from going into youth football to senior football, which was a big change for me. But it was a jump that I decided to take, and yeah, it's been brilliant so far. So
fantastic. No, I think that's a fantastic story. I think the theme of it is that one of sort of friendships and network, and that's the game, isn't it? And that's a massive tool in recruitment.
100%. Like, I can go out, and I'm sure Glyn would say the same. You can go out and watch hundreds of games of football, but it's not just identifying that footballer. It's knowing where to go to, what relations you might have built up with people along the way. And it might not be for today or tomorrow, but for the future. And you just might then get that call, or you can call them, and then you might just get ahead of the queue, or things chop and change in football, as we know. It's not recruiting someone is not as easy as just going out saying you like them and let's just get them in tomorrow. There's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes to try and get the right ones in.
Absolutely. Now, when Tony said that you were coming on the programme today, I was very excited, because do you know what? Recruiting in League One, I think, is potentially, Tony, one of the sort of toughest, strangest, so much going on in League One at the moment. I want to ask you, last season, League One, League Two clubs operated the wage cap. Okay, so I won't bore you with this, Marc, but you know, the last 18 months has me being on my high horse about how disgusted I was about that wage capping coming in. Has that had a knock-on effect into this season? Okay, it's gone away, but has it set in motion a new landscape that people like yourself are having to operate against?
Yeah, of course, it's different, because naturally, I'd probably say the wage cap maybe have worked to our advantage a little bit, because if we're all paying similar amount of wages for players, then it becomes a football decision, not a financial decision.
Sure. And
therefore, maybe we can put ourselves in the same bracket as an Ipswich or a Sunderland or Portsmouth or Peterborough, Hull, whoever, all the big guns that are in our league. But now you look at this summer, where some clubs are spending, and rightly so. I'm never going to say what they can and what they can't. If they've got £20 in their pocket and I've got 5, I can spend 5, they can spend 20. That's fine. But yeah, so you look at this particular summer, and it's probably common knowledge a little bit that some clubs in our level can pay more for players that we've also identified. But we know that if we're in a race to get that same player, we'll probably lose when it comes to financial reasons. But we then would say that we can offer an opportunity that to go and promote and play like I felt we did last year, when you could arguably say that we may have overachieved and the big boys underachieved. But you go on a pitch, and whether you've decided to pay someone X amount, they don't become a better player because you give them £5,000, and they don't become a weaker player if you give them £500.
Absolutely.
It's 11v11 and on the pitch, and naturally you want the best quality you can, but more importantly, you want someone that's going to be the right person and fit the way that you play. There's good players in League One, in the Champ, and League Two, and all levels. But just because they've had a good season last year doesn't mean that if they're a free transfer that I should be interested in them if they don't fit in the way and the system that our club operate in. So it's not easy, and there is thousands of footballers out of contract, but there's thousands of flights to Spain every day. But it doesn't mean that you're going to jump on any of them just to get to Spain. I'm pretty sure that you've got a certain filter that you want, what day you want to go, what airport you want to go from, etc., to know where you want to go. And it's the same as football players.
Marc, in that landscape, and I think like League One is probably the most unlevel playing field. You know, you've got Sunderland at one end, 40,000 fans when they can get them. You know, Sunderland, Sheffield Wednesday have come down as well, haven't they? You know, the Ipswich have got new owners. You know, there's so many teams in there, and then there's teams that have just come up, and it seems to happen quite frequently that they get out of the National League and they jump straight into League One, don't they? Or it seems that the National League's pretty strong as well. So it's a real melting pot. So how do you and where do you do your scouting?
Yeah, well, we're very in line with what we want as a football club, right from the top level, from what the club expect and the style of the brand that they want their spectators to watch. And therefore, the head of recruitment, Jez George, in terms of football director, when Nicky and Danny left, he was keen to recruit someone that would fit what we needed as a football club. And we've got a fantastic manager, head coach, Michael Appleton, and he's very clear on how he wants to play and what types of players he likes. That fits in with how we actually believe what we want to do as well. So it makes recruitment in terms of identifying players easier, but trying to attract them and get them over the line naturally is always difficult, because no doubt other clubs are also looking at the same types of players. So we're very clear in what we're looking for. But as you say, when you've got the level and the league that we're in, where so many like ex-Premier League clubs, it does make it for an exciting league in a very tough league.
Yeah. By the way, that was a great question, Tony. And I want to press you on it, Marc, because there is a really interesting dynamic going on. There are teams in the National League that have recruited from League One. Okay, Stockport take players from League One. They're not under the same kind of financial provisions that you are. The League One clubs are still having to operate under the salary cost management protocol. You can only spend 65% of your turnover. Do you feel that pressure from other leagues as well? That you're in a strange position where you're recruiting on cost with lower leagues?
We don't worry what other people do. We naturally going to compete against them on the pitch, and sometimes looking for the same players. But our club is really stable. We know exactly our parameters of what we can and what we can't do. It makes it very clear. So then the filter process then makes us know what we can go and potentially look for. So if I pick up the paper this morning and see that maybe a club in our league has signed a player that's a top end, we might not be able to win that battle anyway. So don't worry about that.
Sure.
We've got a massive fan base. As I say, the club's growing. So to put it into concept, when Lincoln were playing in the National League, and I'm sure it's similar to other clubs, that we're probably playing in front of 1,800. And as the results got better, naturally the crowds improved. But I think the turning point for the owner, who was a director at the time or just taken over, was he saw that when Lincoln went to Wembley for the very first time against Shrewsbury, I wasn't at the club at the time, but I was actually at that final, and Lincoln took 29,000 fans.
Wow.
And I think it kind of thought, wow, this club's got some potential. And we play in a bit of an old school stadium, but the one thing I will say is that it's full every week, and it's even to the point where we have to cap season tickets. So we have 6,500 season ticket holders that we can't go over, because the ground only holds 10,500 at the moment, and you put the away end's got 2,000, so that's 8,500. So then you've only really got 1,500 tickets to sell on a match day, and we always want to welcome new supporters. And I think we had 25,000 unique first-time visitors before COVID, and we've got plans to extend the stadium during next season develops, to make it 12,500.
Wow.
So that we can get more people in, and just showing that the potential and success of where the club wants to go. For the first time in its ever history, they've just spent money on a brand new fibre sand pitch. So the playing, we're looking for good quality players, so you want a surface that they're going to be able to play well on. And we've done the same at our training ground as well. So when you talk about money being spent, it's not necessarily in the players' back pockets, although you do have to pay what you have to pay to get the right ones. But it's important that you have something that the ones you are paying good money to come to an environment where it's going to help them improve as well.
And Marc, the loan market, you used that quite successfully. There's a couple of good players that you've had. How have you found that?
It was magnificent for us. Naturally, if we can't get a permanent player that we can afford or we feel is going to fit the criteria that we're looking for to help us become the best we can, it's a good market to go in and give opportunities to the top talents at the big clubs who can't quite break through at this moment in time, would maybe be fair to say. Some clubs don't like to take younger players because it's too much of a risk. Michael's very clear, like I say, I guess two people that you're going to mention in particular are going to be Brennan Johnson and Morgan Rogers, 18 and 19 when they joined us, probably gone back to their parent clubs thanking us quite a lot to say, you've just put a massive evaluation on them because they've played and done and performed well for us. But they performed well for us because, one, we identified them knowing that how they'd fit into our team. And also we wasn't scared by the fact that they hadn't played much football previously. And it is a gamble, but signing any player is a gamble or risk. But we backed our own judgment, give the players a real loving and supportive environment, and said, go on and go and show us what you can do with the support of our manager. And all right, they're not our players, but they helped us get to an unbelievable position, because there's no way on earth anyone had us down getting to the playoff final in League One last year.
I think you're right, and I think
but we did. We concentrated on ourselves, and we were humble, and we got on with our work, and that's the reward as such.
And obviously with that success that came last year, Marc, unfortunately in football comes a bit of expectation. You obviously, Tony and I are based up here in the northeast. You've obviously done one over on the big club in League One up here as well. They'll be rattled. What are the expectations into next season?
Just being the best we can be. I know, it's all right. You can't put, we're going to finish in the top two. We're going to finish it. You ask any footballer and they want to be the best they can and they want to finish as high as they can. I think when you start saying what you're going to do before you do it, I think you leave yourself quite open. And you've got to be really respectful to everyone. You look at last year, no one would have thought Morecambe would have been promoted from League Two.
Definitely not.
Cambridge and Cheltenham, you look at them, and Salford maybe scratching their heads thinking, well, how have they done it on a less budget than us, as an example? Sunderland will be saying the same. How did Lincoln come above, beat us when we've got more resources to our availability? So I think it's one of those. We just believe in what you're trying to do. have a certain focus and a certain playing style, and then go and give it your all and let's see what happens. But we're not going to say, oh, because we're ranked as the 15th place in the finances in League One, that's where we have to end up. That's wrong. That we can't say what we're going to do, but what we'll say what we'll do is we'll give our best, and we'll give everyone a game.
We've got lots of agents on here, Marc, and obviously the two players who were very good loanees have gone back to the parent clubs and what have you. What's the sort of turnover of players looking like? Because have you lost players to bigger clubs as well?
Naturally, I say this in the right term, we'll probably aim to lose players because the players we're trying to recruit, we'd like to think could be above our level. So they'll help. We'll both go there ourselves, or they'll go there before us. Yeah. But naturally, we'd hopefully like to get there ourselves. So you look at, we were actually the youngest playing squad in the whole of the EFL, League 1 and League 2 last year.
I didn't know that.
Our average age is 23.
Wow.
So that's the model. We have a tight squad because we don't have a lot of money to recruit lots of players. We've lost one player this summer because he's gone to a higher level. Fine. Our aim now is to try and replace that player and go again, but we haven't lost anyone yet to date. And all we're going to try and do for this particular summer is build on what we ended. Naturally, we had some top loans last year, and our aim is to replace those loans with new permanents or with other top loans. It's not easy, but we're pushing and fighting and trying to do our best to try and be in a similar position as we are next season as we were last.
And Tony, this is why the salary cost management protocol is so good in League One, because clubs such as Lincoln, they're able to compete not only on the size of their business, but the skill of their staff as well. So it's a combination of those two things. And Marc, it's an art, isn't it? Recruitment. It's not purely a science, and there are inefficiencies in there. I mean, do you agree with that sentiment? Do you treat it as a combination of art and science?
Yeah, I say we haven't got big staff, but we've got good staff.
Yeah.
And we work really closely together and trying to outline our strengths and our processes of how we try to recruit the right ones and look after the right ones when we get them. So, yeah, I think you do. There's lots of things that are involved in not only trying to recruit, but then making sure you get the best out of them whilst they're in your building. Yeah. And that's not easy. But because we want to be successful, naturally, then you develop that environment where everyone's reading off the same page, really. Sure. And listen, we do it within our restraints, and all we try and do is the best we can with what we've got to play with. And yeah, we sometimes get a bit frustrated if we don't get the odd player and stuff, but we're mindful of the fact that we know what the caliber of what we're trying to look for and the profile of what we look for. So it makes it easy to know what we need to get, but it doesn't make it easy in how we get them.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Marc. I mean,
no, brilliant.
If I was, we've got lots of agents on the call and lots of agents in the football transfer forum. So my message to those guys out there is, if you've got a good young player in the Championship, in the Premier League, who needs a very good loan, I think you've represented the club fantastically well. And I'd certainly be, the nice new pitch, the stability, the manager. It sounds like a great option for me.
Yeah, we just try and develop a platform where we can help people go on. And that's not just players, that's staff as well, to a degree. We know that one day there will be members of our playing staff and coaching staff or backroom staff that might go on to bigger and higher things. But if they're happy where they are at this moment in time, then they'll stay and try and continue what they're doing at our club. And so we all want to achieve things, and it doesn't mean you have to go to a bigger name to do that. If you're happy in your environment, you crack on. And yeah, we all know how the hours that everyone works in football. So it's if you're happy in what you're doing, then keep going.
Fantastic. Really enjoyed speaking with you, Marc. It's going to be really exciting to see how Lincoln go again next season. We'll have a look out for the Sunderland fixture, Tony, won't we? And maybe try and get to the game. But thank you. Thanks so much for sharing your story and your insight and being on the call.
No problem at all. Appreciate your time.
Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Marc. Fantastic. Let's crack on. We've got about 20-25 minutes to go. If you've got any questions, continue to get them into the Q&A box. We'll get through them. But Tony, I'm gonna go back and share my screen, because I know you're going to talk about the latest numbers of agents' fees, which I've plotted in there against the previous years.
Oh, you've done my job for me, Ryan. That's fantastic. I don't know how you haven't got the last notes and the last figures on each line. You haven't made your boxes large enough, have you?
Okay, right. We can have a feedback session later. Yeah.
Yeah. So this season, and the FA kindly provide these numbers for us agents and other people who are interested, like journalists, about what agents' fees are paid. Obviously today we're looking at Championship, League One and League Two, but the Premier League figure is out there, and it's a whopping 272 million rounded up figure. Absolutely incredible. I think we touched on it last month in last month's webinar. If anyone can tell me who is the top spender in the Premier League, so with the 20 clubs in the Premier League, you know, what my maths isn't great, but it's somewhere near about 12 million per club. But if somebody can put in the chat who's going to be the top spender on in the Premier League, let me know. And also who's going to be the lowest spender. So yeah, well, we've got Chelsea at the top, 35 million. Man City are actually second, Rick, and then Man United. Southampton, who Martin Glover was on last time, they're about 6 million. And at the bottom, the lowest one was West Brom. Now, interestingly, that figure in the last 3 years has been pretty, you know, there was a big jump about 4 years ago of about another 50 million, but it's gone up a slight amount. Whereas if you look down to the Championship, their figure for this year is a 41 million pound spend, but that's been going down from 50 million. And I think from what we've been saying and the temperature that we've taken from people in the Championship, that's probably going to go down again.
Yeah,
it's probably going to go down, you know, another 20-25% as new contracts are getting signed, less money's getting spent on players' salaries, and obviously that all feeds into the agent fees that are payable. We've just been talking to Marc in League One. I'll tell you actually what Lincoln spent on agents' fees in the last set of results, and it was 92,500. Now, interestingly, in the League One figures, in 2018-19, there was £5.5 million spent. And that was such a large figure, it dwarfed any of the previous figures. And mainly because Sunderland landed in the account in that year in League One. So they get, I think their proportion of that figure was something like 2.8 million. So it was League One and Sunderland, that figure. And then obviously as Sunderland have reduced their wage bill, it's gone down from 5.5 to just under 4 to now 3. And just to give you a comparison, and I've got the figures here, Sunderland in 2018 spent 2.8, and it's now down to, let's have a look, where's Sunderland? It's now down to 400,000. So you can see as players have dropped out of the club and gone elsewhere, that figure's gone down massively. And then down at League Two level, it's been fairly even throughout the last 4 or 5 years. But you can see the downward trend is going to be starting. You know, the downward trend is definitely starting in the Championship. You can see that already. Because of Sunderland, it slightly skews the figures in League One. But that will be on a downward trend as well. And my expectation is that League Two and the National League, we haven't really got figures for the National League, will also be on a downward trend.
Tony, I'm not 100% sure. I agree on the National League. I would think maybe a stagnation this year, but not as dramatic fall as one would expect. As I say, there are some big spending clubs without the financial restrictions of other leagues in the National League. And of course, this is all interesting information against the potential reforms coming in to the world of agency, which we've spoke about loads of times on here. Do you think this organic, naturally reversing situation might change some of the conversations that are happening, at FIFA level?
Well, not really. I mean, I think FIFA and their new agent regulations, which we've been talking about for a couple of years now, the latest update that we've got through our contacts, through the AFA, which is our own association, and the European Football Agents Association, is it's going to be sometime in 2022. It was supposed to be out well before now. The cap that FIFA are proposing is obviously got all the agents upset about that, and they're talking about a 3% level of cap, which is very low. I know you, Ryan, don't agree with any caps in any sort of scenario anywhere, and I'm in that same camp. But I think FIFA have looked at the big deals. They've looked at the Pogba deal. They've looked at some of the fantastic amounts of money that are changing hands at the top end of the game, and they're wanting to reduce that. I don't think they're massively concerned about League One, League Two, National League in England. I just think, the agents will have to, who are working with players at that level, they'll be getting what FIFA have proposed. And really, when they're targeting the top level, it's not really a one size fits all, if you know what I mean. It's if they start to reduce figures in the Premier League, it'll have a knock-on effect, and that'll harm some of the agents who are working with all sorts of different players.
And Tony, the other thing I wanted to ask you was, as we enter into this new transfer window now, there's been half clarity from the revenue in terms of what's required from a dual representation perspective moving forward. Is the inevitability of that new advice that's also going to drive agent fees down?
It's worrying what the HMRC said. I was at a meeting of the Association of Football Agents back at Barnet. It might have been 4 years ago now. And the HMRC were there. They didn't get booed. They were quite nice guys. They set the stall out. They were quite comfortable at that time about dual representation, as long as it was on a 50-50 representation basis. So 50% on the player's behalf, 50% from the club's behalf. They did have issue with greater amounts than that. So 70-30, 80-20, even some cases in the football business where it didn't appear that the player had an agent and the agent was purely working 100% for the football club. They did raise concerns about that back in that meeting. The latest meeting of the Association of Football Agents was online. And one of the guys said, no, we're actually looking at the 50-50 dual representation contracts. We're going to, we need to see evidence that you've really worked for the club. And so the advice that we've been given is, you need to note down, you need to make a note. I mean, it sounds, I don't think many agents do it in practice. I certainly haven't been doing. You need to make notes of when you're speaking to clubs, when you're having meetings with clubs. What are you doing to earn your 50% of the dual rep on the club side? Some people do say, look, you're bringing two parties together, your player and the club. But usually, I find that you're working, you've got the best interests of the player at heart, and he's your client generally. And so 50-50 dual rep, you need to keep a note of things and keep a track of things.
It's certainly going to be interesting to see what the next few years' numbers look like. Tony, any more sort of wider thoughts on the transfer window over the next 6 weeks or so?
Yeah, I think, well, Glyn and Marc have both sort of backed up what I've been thinking in terms of the Championship, League One and League Two. Lots of loan deals, I mean, there's a lot of free agents on the market. Many have moved already. You know, everyone's contracts were up last week. People are into pre-season training, so you really want your players to be in pre-season training. If they're free agents, it's very tough working on your own fitness and what have you. So I think it's going to be a low spending, very low spending summer. I think the strikers and creative attacking players market is always going to be there. You know, clubs who are intent on getting out of their league might find some money down the back of the settee to buy your striker or your creative attacking player and what have you. And like we said with the guys, you know, it might be an opportunity for some of your 18, 19-year-old academy players to step onto the pitch more, you know, more in the squads, more in the match day starting 11, and that type of thing. I think we might see a lot more of. And again, those guys who are playing in the under 23s, you know, some of the better under 23s in the Premier League and in the under 23s in the Championship, you know, they might get more opportunity at the likes of Lincoln. You know, Lincoln will probably be in the market for another loan players, as I think many clubs will be, just to get them over this particular period. I mean, I think, you know, particularly in League One, Wigan have been taken over. They're looking, you know, they've signed, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 players. I think they needed to sign a lot of players, but they've shown an intent, the new owners, and it's a friend of the Football Transfer Forum, Tom Markham, who's part of that group, and they've started very strongly. Ipswich have been taken over as well. They've, you know, had a statement of intent. I think they bought the keeper from Salford, and a couple of other players as well. So, yeah, I mean, you know, the market, teams need players. You know, you can't go into the season without your 23, 24, 25 man squad or whatever. So teams need players, and you know, that's never going to change.
Yeah, fantastic. I think it's going to be such an interesting season next season. I think, as I alluded to with Marc, that waiting between sort of the, you know, the art and the science is going to be massive. And I think those that can do efficient transfers, I think, you know, there might be one or two shocks. And League One is, as I say, it's full of interesting prospects, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't have a guest on for League Two, but it's very much the same down there as well, isn't it? Yeah. You know, you've got the likes of Salford, very well resourced club, who I think Marc mentioned. You know, you would expect them to be one of the favourites to be at the top of that league, potentially with their budget and their spending power. But you know, let's see.
Excellent. If there are any questions, I think now's the time to get them in. But if not, we might be able to have a bit of an earlier finish today. Tony, any other information in terms of the Football Transfer Forum and what we're looking at in terms of getting back to some sort of normality?
Yeah, I mean, it's been almost 18 months since the last live Football Transfer Forum. We are planning an event in November time this year. Details to be announced. Hopefully we'll be able to announce it on the next Football Transfer Forum, which is Thursday, the 5th of August. So, you know, we'll have an exclusive. We want to get people back in the rooms. It's great doing webinars and Zoom calls, but, you know, meeting people, you know, reaffirming those relationships you've got with people in the football business is what it's all about. And obviously your network is, everyone on the call knows how important your network is in terms of being a successful operator in the football transfer space.
Absolutely. Okay, fantastic. Let's just recap really what we've had today. So absolutely everybody's got to get on that free trial from the guys, Max and Arthur, this morning at Catenaccio AI. Tony, are you going to drop it in the chat box once again?
I'm going to put it in now. Yeah.
Fantastic.
And here's the code that you use as well.
Yeah. So absolutely take them up on that offer. That's a brilliant opportunity to see what that tool is all about. And really, that's a great tool for both clubs and agents. You don't really want to be going to a club with a player that isn't eligible. So a fantastic tool for absolutely everybody. And Tony, I really enjoyed having those two conversations today. Championship, League One, two completely different environments, two fantastic clubs. Found it really interesting.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate Marc and Glyn's time. Obviously, they're busy in the window. They've probably missed about 10 phone calls and 20 emails, and hopefully some of the guys have picked up a few pointers about, you know, approaching them guys at their clubs.
Absolutely. I hope everybody enjoys the rest of the European Championships. As Tony said, we'll be back in early August. You'll all get the invite for that. And as Tony also said, hopefully we'll have news about the next live football transfer forum as well. Tony, have a great rest of July, and we'll speak again very soon.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ryan. Take care.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.